He's looking at her long enough that he can describe the texture of her hair, so it is absolutely not a glimpse, and that's a really long time to be standing hallucinating.
For me, it's evidential for Team Believer, because you've got kind of independent witnesses seeing the same thing but a period apart.
And then there's a noise that is not the baby, and it's not something that's on screen.
Hello, here we are in the wilds of the Welsh countryside. Now, in Welsh folklore, it is said that Gwyn ap Nudd, the king of the underworld, comes riding a horse, leading his pack of hellhounds to claim the souls of the living and take them to the realms of the dead. He wasn't available, sadly, to take part in this episode, so we have the next best thing. Our experts, please welcome, for Team Believer, writer and parapsychologist Evelyn Hollow! And for Team Sceptic, it is the supernatural Simon Cowell, Dr. Ciarán O'Keefe. Ooh, hello. Were you being attacked by a microphone there? How are you both? Evelyn, we are here in Wales. Do you have a favourite Welsh ghost story?
I actually do. So this is a story about a woman called Margaret Blackburn, and she was said to have been murdered by her husband in 1713 in a village called Marford, which I believe is near Wrexham. And she's connected to a property called Roft Hall. Now, the story is that after her murder, she came back as some sort of vampire-like revenant, and she was going round the village tapping on windows asking to be let in, like something out of Salem's Lot. To the point where, in the village in the 1700s, some of the properties had windows with crosses pre-built into them to stop her from tapping on the glass.
Wow, amazing story. Ciarán, I know people have been enjoying all of your skeptic theories on our Uncanny Cold Cases series. Here is a question for you. If you could investigate any haunting throughout history, what would it be?
Wow. I guess on my bucket list is Alcatraz. Although I've investigated loads of locations in San Francisco and other parts of California, I have never actually done Alcatraz, so that would be definitely one.
Can you imagine that? Ciarán live from Alcatraz. That is a show I would like to see. All right, take a seat, but don't get too comfortable, because it is time for our first case. Our witness is called Peter. He's in his 50s with salt and pepper hair, and he's a nurse from a whole family of nurses. His grandmother, mother, and wife have all worked for the NHS. We're going to join him one night back in the early 2000s, right at the start of his career, working in a hospital on the south coast of England. Have a listen to this.
I was a very inexperienced and relatively naive student nurse at that point, and it was one of the first set of night shifts I'd actually done. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was in a really, really old bit of the hospital, and the staff's toilets were situated upstairs, and there was a wooden staircase going up to the toilets. And when I looked up, there was an elderly lady standing at the top of the stairs. Now, in my naivety, I assumed this was one of the patients. She looked real. She had long, scraggly hair. She was wearing an old-style nightdress. It had ruffles around the neck and around the sleeves. And I was a little bit shocked, so I started to say, what are you doing up there? And she just faded away like she was made of mist.
So hold on, she disappeared in front of your eyes?
Yeah. It was like she was solid, and all of a sudden she became opaque and then just faded away.
Are you sure this wasn't a patient?
Absolutely sure, because I went back down to the ward and all the patients were still in bed, and because it was a rehabilitation ward, none of the patients could get out of bed unaided.
Did you think that people would think you were crazy?
Yeah, absolutely. I also needed my paperwork signed off to pass the placement as well, so equally I didn't want to make waves, so I actually kept quiet about it. I qualified and I've done many jobs as a nurse between now and then, but 4 years ago my job changed and I moved back to the building that this ward used to be on, and the majority had been converted into offices. My office was on the first floor at the opposite end of the corridor from where I saw the lady. But as soon as we moved into the office, things started happening. Things like the whole corridor had motion censored lights. along there. And in the evening times when it was dark, sometimes you would hear the footsteps and the lights would come on. But whenever you looked out there was nobody there to activate it. The other thing was there'd be movement of air in the corridor. It was almost like someone was walking past you with a waft of air going past you. I then started sharing an office with other people, and things would be moved when nobody was in there. We'd lock up and come in the morning, things had been knocked off the desk. We had some cups on the shelf, and one of my colleagues messaged me on WhatsApp with a picture saying, "Have you seen this?" And all the coffee cups were on the floor on the other side of the office, and one of the glasses that had been there was smashed, and the glass was scattered across the room. And she was really, really freaked out by this.
So she knew that she'd left the room neat and tidy, and she walked in to find out that.
Yeah. So the only way you can get in there is with a security guard swiping. You've got a security guard and you swipe in and out, and then you use the key to unlock the door. And there's a record of people going in and out of the building. So
for objects to move in that room, one of you or your colleagues would have had to go in there, and if you had gone in there, your name would have been registered with the security guard.
Yeah. And that hadn't happened. The other thing was the office across the corridor, my boss was in there, and she had lots and lots of technical problems in that office that nobody else used to have. And it was her that said, it must be Mary playing with our technology.
Why Mary?
It just felt natural to call this thing, what was happening, Mary. Oh, here we go, Mary's been messing around with the office again.
What happens next?
Well, in November 2024, I was coming back to my office from being out and about doing my work and just to catch up on a bit of paperwork. And as I was about to enter my office, out of my peripheral vision, I saw some movement, and I was really shocked to see the same lady staring back at me. The thing that really sticks in my mind is she was staring directly at me.
You are looking at her and she is looking at you?
Yeah, straight back at me.
Goodness me, so this is a quarter of a century later. She looks exactly the same?
Yeah. My heart at that point is racing. And then, within a blink of an eye, she'd gone.
Shiver me timbers. That is not the end of Peter's story. There is more to come, but let's check in and get the thoughts of our experts. Evelyn, the one essential ingredient for any ghost story is sadly death. And we get a lot of stories coming to us from medical professionals like Peter. They deal daily with death. Does that make them more likely to see ghosts?
Well, we could certainly say that there's a priming effect to it in the same way that there's a priming effect in, say, a morgue. However, if you are a medical professional who works in the field, death is not supernatural to you. In fact, it is the complete opposite of that. It is something you deal with every single day. So I would argue that that makes you less prone to fantasy because for you, it's your absolute reality.
All right, interesting, good point. Ciarán, to see what you believe is a ghost is sensational enough, right? But to then see the same ghost again, 25 years later, in the same spot, have we ever come across anything like this before?
No, I don't think we have. I mean, there are famous historical locations like Hever Castle, Hampton Court Palace, where you get repeatable hauntings, so people will see the same ghost. But here, this is not a famous location, so yeah, this is very unusual. But you've got to remember, he is a student nurse. You know, I was a student nurse myself doing night shifts, and it's one of his first night shifts. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's an old part of the hospital, so it's incredibly creepy. So we do have a suggestion element there.
But if he is imagining things, and lots of other people are experiencing things too, Evelyn, aren't they? We've got this backdrop of other potential activity, things moving at night, footsteps, motion detectors being triggered, and those smashed mugs in that locked office. What do you make of that?
Yes, because that's a shift in phenomena. So a visual apparition is one thing, but then having tangible objects disturbed or things that can be measured or quantified is different. Now, obviously, light sensors and lights play up all the time. They can sometimes register things that are not there, even insects, things like that. The difficulty becomes with the kind of locked room. So there's a security guard that monitors that you have to deal with that person and be on a log to come in and out. Plus, you need the actual physical key to get into the room. So it can only be a person who has that security clearance who works there that can go into it. So either somebody is purposely doing it and is completely messing with them, or there is something that doesn't require a key to get into a room.
All right, Ciarán, big question. For Peter's first sighting, one potential explanation is a real person, obviously a real old woman. That goes flying out the window, doesn't it, for the second sighting? Because there is no way someone that old would still be alive 25 years later.
No, I guess not. But also, you're assuming, that the first person was a ghost or the first person was real. You're talking about both of them being ghosts, but there's a possibility that he imagined the first one and there's some sort of environmental trigger for the second one. I always talk about infrasound, this low frequency sound that might trigger a visual hallucination. You've got a long corridor, and in hospitals, there are lots of potential sources for that. Air conditioning units, but also a huge amount of machinery and electrical items that could be causing infrasound.
He stares at her, she stares back. This is prolonged contact.
Yes, because I think it's different when there's a glimpse. And so there's a glimpse of something, it's a shape, a movement, your brain stitches it together. But this is different. He's looking at her long enough that he can describe the texture of her hair. He can even describe the texture and colour and material of her dress. So it is absolutely not a glimpse. And that's a really long time to be standing hallucinating.
It's forensic, granular detail. All right, look, interesting thoughts, but we ain't done yet. Let's go back to Peter. How does he respond to potentially seeing this spirit called Mary a second time? Last time you didn't tell anyone. Do you tell anyone this time?
Yes, absolutely. We started talking a fair bit about this. One of the social workers recounted to me a story about she was on a Microsoft Teams meeting and there were roughly around 8 people in the meeting. She had her camera on and she'd been speaking, and one of her colleagues put her hand up and said, "Who was that lady just walked past behind you?" She walked behind you, went into the office next door. Now, there is no door in her office to get to the office next door. That door had been bricked up years and years ago.
So she walked through a wall?
Yeah.
Is this your old woman?
It was an old lady with long scraggly hair, and she was wearing a dress with a ruffly neck.
How do things develop from this point then? What happens next?
One afternoon, my wife and I went over for lunch with my mum and dad, and I started to talk about the experiences, and my mum said, "Oh, so you've seen Mary as well then?"
Mary?
Yeah. She said this is just a name they used to call it, Scary Mary. And at that point, my mum recounted a story to me from, it was in the sort of mid-80s. My mum had worked at the same hospital as me previously, and I found out that she'd actually worked along the same office corridor as me. And she was coming up that set of stairs whilst reading a document. And at the top of the stairs, out of peripheral vision, she saw a person. So she stopped to let this person go past. And she was still looking down at the document, and she felt a rush of air go past her. But when she looked up, there was nobody there.
So she had been there about, 40 years before you?
Yeah, 40 years before me.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't explain it.
Scary Mary. Ciarán, a haunting on a Microsoft Teams meeting. It could not get more modern than that. How can all these people be mistaken? They are all sitting there staring at their screen. They see her, don't they?
Yes, they do, potentially. But again, like I said, we've only got one person actually reporting it. However, it's an online meeting, and we've got potentially some record of it. And it's difficult to have one person maybe misinterpret what they're seeing. So, yeah, it's an intriguing moment. It's difficult to explain.
All right, we've probably all experienced frightening things on Zoom during lockdown, people forgetting to turn their webcams off at certain moments. But it is so interesting, Evelyn, the idea of ghosts, whatever they might be, harnessing the kind of technology that we use to communicate. If these are dead humans, it makes an enormous sense, doesn't it? Do you think that there are other spirits out there trying to jump on a Zoom or send a WhatsApp?
So I think it's that we interpret it, that we think of ghosts as once being living people, and therefore when there's interference with electronic technology, which is the most commonly reported aspect of a haunting type case, we think of them as if the dead are sat there with the QWERTY keyboard, trying to work the iPhone. It's not really like that, because all that you're really doing is manipulating pixels on a screen or manipulating electricity through a device rather than something actually sitting typing out on the keyboard. However, if something is composed of matter that we can see with the naked human eye and therefore can also be seen on camera, it makes sense that it would be seen on a Teams meeting. You're not visible to everybody in this room, but your magic power power is that when you're dead, you can't be seen on a Zoom background or something like that. Doesn't make sense.
It's just sensational, that moment where she seems to walk through the wall, the door that no longer exists. And then, Ciarán, we've got that incredible revelation that Peter's mother might have encountered Mary too back in the 1980s.
Yeah, this is a lovely moment because for me it's evidential for Team Believer, because you've got kind of independent witnesses seeing the same thing but a period apart. But it's also slightly evidential from a Team Sceptic point of view, because it highlights for me kind of hospital folklore. There's this story about this character Mary. So it means that you've got lots of, not contagion, but storytelling going on in that environment. And that may result in some of the experiences.
It's so interesting that people have been talking about Scary Mary for 40 years. You just wonder, is it literally imagination and contagion, or is there really something there? Let us find out what our audience think about this case. Here in Hay, give me a shout if you are feeling Team Sceptic on this one. Who thinks it could be explained environmentally or psychologically? Yeah. All right, okay, solid show. Yeah, it wasn't too bad, Ciarán. Ciarán holding his head in despair. That wasn't too bad. We've seen worse. And who is feeling Team Believer and thinks it could be paranormal? All right. Well, I think that was fairly mixed. Look, I would love to hear some theories from both sides. I'm going to wander out into the tent here. Let's see what people think. How do we explain all of those sightings so many years apart? The smashed mugs, lights coming on, and can a ghost really appear on Microsoft Teams? Let's find out. Here we go. I'm going to come down and get some theories. So just stick a hand in the air if you've got a theory on this case. It could be Team Believer or Team Sceptic. Fantastic. All right, I'm coming down to you, running around. Here we go. And go on, tell us your name and your theory.
My name's Nick.
Sorry, I'm going to get you to stand up, actually, so the cameras can see you, Nick. Sorry. Come on. And I'm going to give you the mic. There we go. Come on, tell us your name and your theory.
What song do you want? I'm a skeptic, although I have seen a ghost, but that's a bit weird. My theory is that it's a story that's gone through from his mother. He's been told the story, he's remembered it. That's been fed down the line, and he's just reimagined a story that he's heard from the past.
All right, really interesting. Big round of applause. Good theory. Let's take one here. I'll pass that down to you. Tell us your name and your theory.
Hello, I'm Kath. It sounded remarkably similar to one that we had at school called Bloody Mary. And it seems that all of these sort of contagious ones seem to be called Mary, and they all go along these similar lines where the story passes amongst people. And with Bloody Mary, it was about looking in a mirror and seeing a face of a woman back.
What was the game called?
It was called Bloody Mary.
You've said it 3 times!
Oh,
yeah. What are you doing? You're going to bring it into the tent now, my God.
I won't look at any mirrors tonight.
But no, it's true. It's true. That game is so popular. It's normally used by older kids at school to scare the younger ones, I think. Thank you so much. Big round of applause again. It's interesting. Certain names do seem to crop up for ghosts a lot. Lots of Marys, lots of Freds, things like that. Let's take another theory if we can. We've got a hand over there. Great. I'll come over to you. Tell us your name and your theory.
I don't know if it's in favour of Sceptic or Believer, but my dad, also a nurse from a family of nurses, recounts similar phenomena in a hospital that he used to work in Norwich called Thorpe St Andrew, where it was widely believed that there were ghosts in that hospital, both whilst it was operating and after it closed down.
Did he believe then? Did his experience in the hospital make him a believer?
He is generally Team Believer, yes.
Okay.
So he didn't witness it himself, but he did believe the stories that he heard.
All right. Look, thank you. Big round of applause again. We've met so many people over the years, Ciarán, doctors and nurses, medical professionals who've had these experiences, often talk about that incredibly poignant moment at the end of someone's life where they feel something tangibly seem to leave the body. Surely all these people can't be imagining something.
No, but then again, they're in an environment where for a number of reasons you're going to have these stories. Number one, the nursing profession is amazing. I was a student nurse for a while. I was a nursing care assistant, busy hospital in London. You're in an environment where people are very, very, very caring, and there's that real sense of loss when one of your patients does die, and there's that real sense of wanting them to continue. So there is that kind of psychological desire for continuance, but also, especially if you're doing a night shift, I have to be honest, hospitals can be quite creepy places at night, especially if you've got an old part of the hospital like we're hearing in this particular story. So I'm not surprised that all of these people are having these experiences.
All right, thank you. And thank you all for your theories as well. I love this aspect of Uncanny. Whatever our beliefs, here we are joining together to try and make sense of these fascinating mysteries. Long may that continue. Big round of applause, please, for all of the people. We have one last story. It comes from Ciarán. She lives in Salisbury. She's got long blonde hair, glasses, and some impressive tattoos. This story happens when she's in her early 20s, a new mum bringing up her daughter Alice on her own.
So in 2019, I moved into a 2-up, 2-down in Marchwood in the New Forest. The house, I think, was built in the 70s, and it was just perfect for me and Alice, really.
So go on, talk me through what happened then.
The first incident was my little girl was at her dad's, so it was just me at home. And I mean, I lived alone, so I would sit on the toilet with the door open, and I could swear I saw a cat run up the stairs, a black cat, and it ran directly into my daughter's bedroom. And we didn't have a cat, we didn't have any pets. The doors were all shut. And I was so convinced there was a cat, so much so that I went into her bedroom just to double check. And I was looking under her cot, I was looking under the teddies, and I couldn't see anything. So this is the first time I was like, that's a bit weird.
Go on and then tell me what happens next.
So I would hear scratching in the loft. At one point I was convinced there was someone up there, so I did call my stepdad in the middle of the night to come check. I refused to go up the stairs. Just again, another weird thing was happening, and the scratching continued the whole time we were there. And again, I just put it down to it being an old house and maybe there's rats in the loft.
So you've had a strange cat that isn't a cat there, and then scratching. What next?
So the thing that really freaked me out was one morning I was watching Alice on the baby camera, just enjoying her kind of talking to herself, babbling away, because this was a new thing for her. She's looking at the camera, I think probably because there's like a little blue light on it, so that's what's drawing her attention. And I hear a noise, and she looks to the left, and then I hear a voice, which now I've still got goosebumps just thinking about it.
So hold on a second. You hear a voice coming from her bedroom. What kind of voice?
It doesn't even. It's not even human. Like it's a horrible voice, and then there's like a noise, and it sounds like a growl to me. And she responds by growling back.
A baby growling? That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Have you still got it?
Yeah, I do.
Can we hear it?
Yes, of course.
I have the actual video recording here. Do you want to hear it, hay-on-wye? Of course you do. Here we go. It's terrifying, though. Let's play it. Here we go. A shiver running around the tent there, my goodness me. And just in case you were worried, we had pixelated the baby's face. That's not paranormal. Okay. Evelyn, what are we hearing there?
Yeah, so it's odd. So obviously you've got a video of a baby in a crib standing up, sort of babbling away to itself. And then there's a noise that is not the baby, and it's not something that's on screen, making this strange sort of noise. The baby then continues to babble, and then there's this sort of weird, sort of grumbly, almost like growling noise, and then the baby growls back at whatever the noise is. It's sort of like, you'd imagine if a baby was playing with a dog, and the dog makes a weird noise, and babies obviously imitate its monkey brain behaviour, but that's what we're hearing on the clip.
Ciarán, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because we have actual evidence. We all heard noise and we heard the baby responding. So we've definitely got noise there. It's not imagination. Just at this stage, I want to know what the noise is. Is there something natural going on?
All right, well, look, let us find out what Ciarán made of it when she played it to me.
Go on, go for it. And then she turns and looks across.
And that's when it says that awful thing and growls at her.
What do you feel the voice is saying?
I think it's saying, help me.
Can I hear that again? Wow. It's so hard to know, though, isn't it, Ciarán? Like, whether is that our minds imposing that meaning onto it, Because I didn't catch Help Me the first time you played it, but then when you said it just now and I listened to it again, I hear it.
Exactly, yeah.
How did you feel after that video? How did you feel about that room?
I didn't really like going into it. We did stay living there for a few more weeks, and I just kind of tried to brush it off and just live my life. But then I think it attacked me.
How do you mean?
That was on the 4th of April, I think, and then about the 17th of April, I was showering, and so I've come out of the shower, walked past her bedroom, and it's felt like someone's just slammed an iron to my back as I've walked past.
An iron?
Yeah, it was hot. It was boiling hot. Something's just hit me on the back. Felt like it was burning. So I've gone into my bedroom and sat on the bed, and I've taken a picture of my back, and I've got a scratch from one shoulder blade to the other across my back, which is red, like it's fresh, and it's straight, so it's not like I could have done it, because if you're scratching your back, you're making like a diagonal line.
Holy crap, Sean, this is intense. Have you got a picture of this scratch?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Oh, well, that is a big scratch.
Yeah, that scared the life out of me.
WT, the actual F is going on here. Ciarán, I'll come to you first. We've got a lot to talk about here. We'll get to that scratch in just a moment. But let's go back to the voice. 2 questions. Does it say help me? Is it a ghost?
Ooh, that's tough 2 questions. We're definitely hearing a voice, but I think the fact that we've been told that it's helped me means we're hearing it. So we talk in psychology about this point, pareidolia. We find pattern in randomness. Given that the voice is ambiguous, now we're told it's helped me, we're seeing the pattern and we're all hearing that.
All right, let's just play it again. Can we just isolate just the voice part of it? Let's play that. Evelyn, it's so hard, isn't it? We know that our brains delight in making patterns out of randomness, as Ciarán rightly says, and yet when you hear it, again, just like that, it does sound a lot like Help Me.
It does, yeah. It's very difficult. I guess an abstract way to test it would be to get, put it out there and not tell people what you think it says, and see how many people come back with the responses without the prompt of seeing or us saying it says help me on it. But to be honest, the first time I listened to it without looking at any notes, and I just, we heard the audio, I did think it said help me as well, without knowing what anybody else thought. But
all right, really. So let's talk about the scratch. I've actually got the photos here that Ciarán shared with me. We can show them up on the screen there to our audience and our experts. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it right now. For all of you listening, I post them on my socials. You can also find them on the BBC Uncanny homepage, along with the baby monitor video. We're looking at these together. That is a big scratch, Evelyn.
yeah, that's a really, really big scratch. So it's right the way along the very top of her back as well. And of course, it wasn't just the pain sensation. She described it as being burning hot. She felt like she'd been hit with an iron, essentially, and that's not subtle. I mean, if it's not supernatural, it still has to be something. It's not that you can't psychologically will yourself into injury. You can, but it requires a severe level of psychosis. We're talking about stigmata, basically, where people, believe that in injury so much, it's connected to religious psychosis, that they begin to get marks in their palms that they bleed from and things like that. She would have to be experiencing an extreme level of psychosis, and she's not. She's a normal lady. She's a single mum, and other than the weird thing on the baby monitor, everything else is fine.
Ciarán, what is going through your head looking at that wound? Because I guess the big question is how, even if ghosts do exist, how on earth can they inflict an injury on a human being?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very difficult question to answer. My first thing going through my thoughts is that it is potentially self-inflicted, but without her realising. We know of cases where people are asleep and they wake up in the morning and have these anomalous scratches and injuries that they can't explain, but actually it is because they have done it to themselves. So that is possible. And the burning would be that she scratched herself, she has a shower, maybe some of that shower gel stuff gets in it, and that's the burning. So that's where I am at the moment.
Right, one thing running around in my head is, why would a ghost that said help me to a baby want to hurt its mum? Really strange question there. All right, look, well, we've heard our experts' responses to these huge developments in the case. Let us hear Sian's response.
I contacted the local church and essentially just asked for their help. The local priest came round, he had his Bible, he had his holy water. He asked us to kind of open all the windows and the doors, and he was telling it to leave, which, bearing in mind Alice has only just found her voice, she's there in the kitchen going, no, 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 no. and she's only just learned to babble, and suddenly she's going, no, 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 as the priest's telling whatever it is to leave.
You feel like she is reacting to what he is doing?
Yeah.
Does it work?
I don't know. I moved out. I literally moved in with my mum and lived on her sofa until my lease was up, and then moved out again. This is how much it scared me. I couldn't live in that house. I was paying rent in a house I wasn't living in.
Sean, I can feel a bit of emotion in your voice here as you're describing this.
Yeah, it scares me. It still scares me. I never was a believer. I don't want to be a believer. But it still terrifies me now. 6 years later, I'm still getting goosebumps about this.
Poor Sean, what a case. Uncanny audience. Let's hear who is feeling team believer on this one. And who is team skeptic? Anybody with Ciarán on this? That's not bad, Ciarán. You've done all right tonight. Don't worry. Look, thank you so much. We will, as ever, agree to disagree. That is the end of this very special live episode. Thank you so much to our brilliant audience here at the lovely Hay-on-wye Festival. Thank you to Ciarán and Evelyn as well. Thank you to all of our witnesses. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. We will be back with something really exciting next week, a summer special of our Uncanny Cold Cases series, exploring that most enduring of hauntings, the Enfield poltergeist. Don't miss it. And regular Uncanny will be back for a brand new series this autumn. If you've got a story you would like to send me, email uncanny@bbc.co.uk or find me, Danny Robbins, on social media and let me know your thoughts and theories on the case we've heard today. Until next time, sleep well. Don't have nightmares, especially not of demonic voices coming through your baby monitor saying...